Hello everyone. I am welcoming you all to the session 2 of Unit 4 Design. In the previous session, we discussed about the importance of the design and the levels of design. In the first level, we are going to identify the modules that are required to develop the software. In the second level, we are going to define the detailed processing logic of the design of the module that we are going to use in the software. We also discussed about modularization criteria, that is, we discussed coupling, cohesion, and as well as a open loop principle. And we concluded that there should be a lowest coupling between the modules, that is, there should be a less interconnection between the modules, and the cohesion should be as high as possible, that is, the functional strength of the elements in the module should be strong. In this session, we'll see what is the best method of design that we can implement in the software development. Organization of this session. We are discussing about functional oriented design. Under that, we are studying about structural charts, example for that, and modules of structural chart. Introduction to function oriented design. Function oriented design is a method in which model is decomposed into a set of interacting units or modules where each unit has a clearly defined function. As we all know that we always employ a method of dividing a software into a different modules. We are not going to develop a software in a one shot. For our easier sake, we are dividing the software into different modules, and each of the modules will be developed independently. So the same concept are also accepted by this function oriented design. As it says, it will be divided or decomposed into a different units or the functions, and there will be an interaction between these defined modules or the units, and all the units will be having a clearly defined function. So all these units will be performing its own function independently. Structured design methodology is used for developing function-oriented system designs. In the function-oriented design systems, we are making use of a methodology called a structured design methodology. It is a very well and most widely used methodology. In this methodology, we are employing a structural chart notation for creating the design. As the output of the design is much needed for the actual coding, it employs a structure chart notation. With the help of this notation, we can directly start with the coding. Now we'll see how exactly this notation would be. Generic procedure. It starts with high-level description of what the software program does. As we all know that before starting with the design, we'll be having a software architecture, and the input to the software architecture will be SRS. So it clearly states that what exactly our software is going to do. So in the generic procedure, what it says is it starts with a high level description of the functionality of the software. We could see in the diagram that there will be a different modules, and we are having a higher level modules and the lower level modules. So we are dividing these higher level modules into a sub modules, again into a sub models. So refine each part of the description one by one by specifying in greater details the functionality of the each part. So first we start with a higher level. We define only the functions of the software. After refining, we are defining in depth that we are describing in depth that by specifying the greater details what exactly it does or functionality of the each and every modules, that we can see in this diagram. The higher level module, again it is divided into a two sub-modules. Again, these sub-modules will be again having a lower level modules. To start with, we are defining the functionalities of a higher level modules. Then we come back to the next step, that is sub-modules. By refining every time, we are specifying in depth the details of each and every module so that it will be easy for the coding and the development. Now we'll discuss about the different function oriented strategies. Basically, we have 4 function oriented design strategies. Under that, first one we have data flow diagrams. This is our most useful and most successful strategies we can say, that is data flow diagrams, commonly called as DFDs. This data flow diagram maps out the flow of information of any process or the system. So as the name itself indicates that it clearly shows or maps the way in which the information has been, how it has been flowing between any specified process or the system. It means it makes use of arrow marks to indicate that how the information will be moved from one module to another, or one process to the another process, or from one system to a subsystem. So in the data flow diagram, it makes use of some of the things like some of the notations like rectangle notations, circles, or the arrow marks to show that how the data has been flowed, and it also indicates the input of the process, output of the process, and the storage units. It also shows the route maps between each destination. Since we can employ different ways to reach the destination, the arrow mark which is used in the data flow diagrams will clearly indicates that how we can reach the destination. The second function oriented design strategy we have is data dictionaries. Data dictionaries are simply repositories to store the information about all data items defined in the DFDs. So as the name itself indicates, dictionary means it is a repository where all the data has been kept. So data dictionaries, usually it is a repository or the central organization we can say, where it stores all the information about the data items that has been described in the DFDs. While storing these data items, we'll be prescribing or giving a unique name to the all the data items, as it is very easy to retrieve whenever we require. We'll be naming with the unique names, naming the items, and we also giving the descriptions to each and every data items, that is will giving an attributes and the functionalities, and we are making a set of related data items, so it is very easy to access. And we are also defining the data structures that has been used in this data items. So once we define the data structures, it is be very useful or very easy to access in a order. So it is just like a library or the repository where we can store the information of all the data items that is frequently used in the data flow diagrams. The third design strategies we have is structural charts. This is a most commonly used one. It is the hierarchical representation which partitions the system into black boxes where functionality is known to users but not the inner details. So it is an hierarchical or a step-by-step representation where we are dividing the system into a black box. Why we give the name black box means the users will be knowing only the functionality of the module, that is whether it is performing the addition, subtraction, or the multiplication, but the users will not be knowing the inner details. That is, inner details means implementation details, that is what is the backend process, what is the backend process that we are going to use, what are the notations we have used, what is the programming language we used. All these things are not known to the users. It is only a step-by-step representation where it knows the functionalities will be known to the users, but not of the any of the inner details. So implementation details will be completely masked from the user. So it is always a simpler way. The user will be knowing what is a particular module is going to do. It is not bothered about how exactly it is implemented. In the structural charts, usually the components will be read from top to the bottom. As we discussed in the previous previous slides, in the generic procedure, it will be read from top to bottom as well as from left to right. All the modules will be divided from top to bottom or usually from left to right. So the black box means functionalities is known but not any of the implementation details. So when we want to access this, a parameter passing method can be used. Using the parameters, we can call any of the functionalities and we can receive the results and store it in the database. We need not to know about any of the internal structures or the implementation details of this functionality. This can be accessed by knowing the name of the functions by using the parameter passing methods. The fourth design strategy we have is pseudocode. Pseudocode is system description. In short, English-like phrases describing the function and used as a replacement for the flowcharts. So pseudocodes means a false code or not really existing code, or we can say virtual code, is just like a English like statements or the phrases which gives a description of the functions. That means it says what exactly the function is going to do, and this can be used as a replacement of the flowcharts. As we all know that before starting with the actual design or the programming, we'll start with the algorithms and the flowcharts to indicate that how exactly the program should start and how exactly the data should flow from one module to the another module. So flowcharts are the best way to represent the skeletal structure of the program. So pseudocode is a best way to describe the functions, and this can be used as a replacement for the flowcharts. This pseudocodes mainly makes use of keywords and as well as the indentation, so that it will be easy for the users to get to know about the functions of the module. So the main advantage of these pseudocodes are it decreases the amount of documentation. So since it makes use of the strong keywords and the indentation, the amount of documentation the required would be very less. So it is very much needed for the users, as it makes a job as simpler as possible. So this is also a one kind of strategy that can be implemented in function oriented designs. Now we'll see in detail how exactly the structural charts will be considered for function oriented designs. The structure of a program is made up of the modules and the interconnections between modules. As we said, we are developing a program by decomposing a program into a different modules, and the interconnections between these modules are very much needed, and there will be a communication between these modules. This structural charts is nothing but a graphical representation of a structure of a program. As we know that graphical representation is a very much useful and effective way of representing the program and as well as the functionalities of the modules. Whatever we say in the words, that will be less effective when we compare to the graphical representation. Graphical representation makes use of different notations that gives more effectiveness to represent the structure. So even the naive user will be getting the more details by making use of this graphical representation. That makes use of some symbols like rectangle or the circles or the diamond to represent the different actions. Usually in the structural charts, function or modules are represented by a box, that is a rectangular box. Within the box we are representing a name or we are writing a name of the function. So name of the function should be meaningful. That is, when we read that particular function, it should define that what exactly it is going to do. So these representation will definitely help us, the users, to get to know what exactly the each and every function does in the program. As I said, there will be a different modules in the program. There will be a arrow mark to represent how exactly the data flows. So here an arrow from module A to module B represents that module A invokes module B. As I said, the functions or the program will be containing a different modules. We are naming it as two modules, as a module A and the module B. So here we are taking an example as module B represents that module A invokes the module B. That means module A calls the module B. So module B, we call it as a subordinate of A. Since it is called by the module A, it is called as a subordinate of A, and A is called the superordinate of B. Since it is A is calling the module B, we call it as a superordinate. It is just like a base class and the subclass. Here, since module A is calling a module B, B is called as a subordinate of A and A is called as a superordinate of B. So there will be a different modules like A, B, C, D. The module which is calling the other module will be having a superpower. So we call it as a superordinate of module. The arrow is labeled by the parameters received by B as input and the parameters returned by B as output. There will be in the each module we are making use of the arrows to represent the parameters as an input and the output, and there will be also a direction of flow of input and the output parameters, usually represented by the small arrows. That is given by this. In order to explain this, let us take an example of sort program. So this diagram shows the structural chart of the sort program. We all know what exactly the sort program does. So basically the problem definition is, we are giving a n numbers, that is any given numbers. So what it should do is, when we input the numbers 1 to n numbers, it should sort. Sort means either in the ascending order or the descending order. The smallest number should come first, and the next is the next largest number, and next is the next largest number. This is how the definition goes. So you can consider any of the sort procedure like insertion sort, binary sort, bubble sort. Any of the sort program can be considered. So what we are doing is, what this structural chart says is, what are all the different modules that we are defining in the structure. As we all know that structural charts gives the different functions or the modules of the program. Here we'll see what are all the functions that a sort program mainly consists. If you see in the diagram, we have one module or a super module called a main function. A main function. So main function will be having a sub functions called read nums. Read nums is a function which reads a number, the input number. So the number which we are giving a input is stored in a function or a module called the read nums. That is, the arrow mark is stored here. Arrow mark is stored from read nums to the main. That is, we are reading the number and giving an input to the main functions. And this, the main functions, after reading the inputs, read nums, that is, it is taking a has an input and the total number of numbers, we are going for the sort. That is, main function will be having a sub module called a read nums. After that, it also contains sort. This is a sub function where it does a actual function. So it is having a sort with the parameters x and the y, parameters x, y. So every time if it wants to perform the sort function, it has to take the input from the read nums, that is a comma n. So sort means basically it is a switch function. Switch means exchanging the numbers. It will compare the value of x with the value of y. If the value of x is lesser than the value of y, it remains same. If the value of x is greater than value of y, then it will be exchanged, or switch, we can say. We can switch the contents of the x and y. So in order to execute the sort function, we are calling the submodules as a switch, that is x comma y. The arrow mark indicates that it calls the switch function. After executing the switch module, that is by comparing the values of x and y, again the input will be sent to the sort. Again the value, that is the final value of the a or the number, will be sent to the main function. And we are also using a module called add number. So after switching or after sorting the number, we are adding the n numbers. After adding, we are getting the sum, and the value of the sum indicates that there is an arrow mark towards the main function. The value of the sum will be getting stored in the main function. So this is a structural chart which says that how we are converting the main function. So the main intention of the sort program is to sort the two given numbers. That is, in order to sort, we are making use of different modules. That is, we are making use of read num module, sort module. Sort in turn calls a switch module, and we are also making use of add numbers module. So it says how the entire program is divided into a different modules, and how it functions, that all the results will be sent back to the main. The arrow marks which is represented here shows how the data will be flowed, how the input will be considered, how the output will be stored in the main function. So this is an example of how we can write a structural chart for the any of the program. In this, we are taken an example of sort program. By looking at the previous diagram, what we can say here is it only represents the hierarchy of the modules, but nowhere it represents the procedural information. So basically, these structural charts represents only the hierarchy of or the division of modules, that is level 1, level 2. If you could see, this is a first level module, second level module, third level module. It only says the hierarchy of the module, but it nowhere represents the procedural information of the module. So how we can represent the procedural information if it is required? Suppose if you look at the diagram, there is a module A, module B, module C, module D. So module A is a main module. We have a module B, module C, and the module D. Here we can see there is an loop. The looping structure will be represented with this arrow mark. It says that module A repeatedly calls the module C and the module D. That is, repeated calls or the iteration process of the module A to the module C and the module D is represented with this arrow mark. So iteration can be represented with the looping structures. That is, this symbol represents that A will repeatedly call the C and D. This is how we can represent the procedural information. Similarly, we can also represent the decision making information. We have a module A, submodules like module B, module C, and a module D. Here we can say one diamond symbol, which is a decision making. Decision making is represented with this symbol. So it takes one condition, true or false. If the condition is true, it calls the C module. If the condition is false, it will call the D module. That is, our decision making will be used with this symbol. Based upon the output of the decision, the modules which is required will be called. This is how we can also make a decision represented. But basically structural charts will only give the hierarchy. If you want to represent the procedural information, then we can make use of this symbol, that is repeated iteration can be used with the loops, and decision make can be used with the switch. Modules of structural chart. We'll see what are all the modules that we can generally see in the structural chart. Input module. As we see, it obtains the information from the subordinates and then passes it to the superordinate. It usually obtains the information from the subordinates, that is lower level modules, and then passes to the higher level, that is superordinate modules. Output module. It obtains informations from the superordinate and passes it on its subordinates. It says that it obtains the information from the superordinate, that is a base class we can say, and passes the information to all the subclasses or the subordinates. Transform module. These are the modules that exists for the sake of transforming data into some other form. As we know that the data always will not be in the required format. So as the name itself indicate, a transfer module is there for the sake of transforming the data existing in one form to the other form that can be easily treated as an input to the next module. There are chances where we have to convert one form of data to the other form. This task is done by a module called transform module. Coordinate module. These are the modules which manages the flow of data to and from different subordinates. As the name itself indicates, coordinate, that means there will be a superordinates and there will be a subordinates, and there will be a different subordinates also. So this is a module which manages how the data can be flowed to or from different subordinates. So there will be no ambiguity, since the coordinate module will manages how the data should be flow between the different modules. With this basic knowledge, now we'll discuss some of the questions. First question. Choose the option that defines function-oriented software design. Option A. It consists of module or function definitions. Option B. Modules represent data abstraction. Option C. Both A and B. Option D. None of the mentioned. We know that function-oriented design mainly concentrates on dividing the entire software into a different modules, and each of the modules will be having a clearly defined functions. It doesn't concentrate about the data abstractions or the data polymorphism. It mainly concentrates how we can define the software into a different modules. So the best suitable option here is option A. It consists of modules or the functions definitions. Question number 2. Which of the following is or true with respect to functions? Option A. A function such as search book is represented using a circle. Option B. Functions represent some activity. Option C. Function symbol is known as a process symbol or a bubble. Option D. All of the mentioned. We know that a function is a search book where we can usually represent it with a circle. It definitely represents some of the activity. It's a process symbol. So we can say that it is true with respect to all the above options. So the best suitable answer here is option D. Question number 3. A function-oriented design focuses on the entities in the system rather than the data processing activities. Option A, true. Option B, false. It is false because the function oriented design basically focuses on the entities in the system rather than the data processing activities, because it concentrates only on the modules, not with the data processing activities. Question number 4. The primary tool used in a structured design is option A, structure chart, option B, data flow diagram, option C, program flow chart, option D, module. We all know that the basic tool or a primary tool we use here is a structural chart. This is a most widely used design structure. Question number 5. The structure chart is a document of what has to be performed, hierarchical partition of programming, information processing requirements. Option D, none of the above. We know that structural chart mainly gives or divides the different modules or different functions. That is, it gives a hierarchical partition of the program. That is, it doesn't concentrate about the processing of the information or the document. It mainly concentrates on the partition of the program so that it will be clearly defines the modules or the functional units. Question number 6. Input module are option A, obtains information from the subordinates and then passes it to their superordinate. Obtains information from the superordinate and then passes it to their subordinates. Option C, both. Option D, none of the above. Option A, input modules will always get the information from the subordinate, that is a lower level modules, and then passes to the superordinate. If it is reverse, if it gets the information from the superordinates and then passes to our subordinates, then it is a output module. So the best suitable option here is answer option A. Question number 7. Data dictionaries means a simple repositories to store the information. Option B, database. Option C, both. Option D, none of the above. We know that dictionary means a repository or a central place where we can store all the information. So the best suitable option here is option A, simply a repositories to store the information. Question number 8. Dash is not represented in a structural chart. Option A, module hierarchy. Option B, hierarchical information. Option C, procedural information. Option D, none of the above. As we know that structural chart mainly represents the hierarchical information, but it doesn't concentrate on the procedural information. So usually procedural information is not represented in the structural chart. So the best suitable answer here is option C, procedural information. Question number 9. Looping arrows represents repeatedly calls between same modules. Option B, repeatedly calls between different modules. Option C, repeatedly calls between any modules. Option D, none of the above. As we see on the previous slides, that arrow mark will be represented between repeated calls between the different modules. In the example we took, like module A will be repeatedly calling the module C and the module D. So the best suitable option here is option B, repeated calls between the different modules. Question number 10. The modules which manages the flow of data to and from different subordinates. Option A, input module. Option B, coordinate module. Option C, output module. Option D, none of the above. We all know it is a option B because the coordinate module is a one which manages the flow of data from the different modules or the different subordinates. So the best suitable option here is coordinate module, which always coordinates between the different subordinates or different superordinates. So with this, we are concluding session 2, where we discussed about the strategies of the function oriented designs and how we can effectively use the structural charts to represent the function oriented design. Thank you.